Hi everybody, I've already made a video today about the so-called anniversary of Fukushima, or as my friend H. Thomas Ackerman describes it, Fukushiva. So this story's been published on the 8th of March 2019. Cracks found in nuclear reactor that could lead to the full evacuation of Edinburgh and Glasgow. So, you know, the reactors are 43 years old. This video has been produced showing the cracks, and there's a bigger picture up here. But this video does start by saying, you know, how nuclear power is clean energy, because, you know, it's not dumping loads of carbon into the air, and it's providing jobs, you see, because we need jobs. And if that means putting our planet at risk and the whole of Edinburgh, so be it, as long as we've got a few jobs out of it. So I presume that the families of the people that are working at this nuclear reactor will equally have to be evacuated in the event of a nuclear disaster. So how serious is it? How serious is it? Well, in the very worst case, the hot graphite core could become exposed to air and ignite, leading to radioactive contamination of the metropolitan areas of Glasgow and Edinburgh. Okay, so according to Dr. Ian Farley, an independent consultant on radioactivity in the environment, and Dr. David Toke, reader in energy policy at the University of Aberdeen, the two reactors definitely should not be restarted. Speaking about the cracks in the barrels, they say, "This is a serious matter, because if an untoward incident were to occur, for example, earth tremor, gas excursion, steam surge, sudden outage, or sudden depressurization, the barrels could become dislodged and or misaligned. These events could turn into large emissions of radioactive gases. Further, if hotspots were to occur, and if nuclear fuel were to react within the graphite moderator, they could lead to explosions inside the reactor core." So the operation limit for the latest period of operation was 350 cracks, but an inspection found that allowance had been exceeded. EDF plans to ask the regulator for permission to restart with a new operational limit of 700 cracks. Well, you know, really, let's face it, if it worst thing does happen, looking at what's happened in Fukushima, you know, there won't be major evacuations. Instead, they'll raise the safety limits of what amount of radiation the population can be exposed to say the equivalent of 200 chest x-rays a year, like they've done in Japan, okay? And people will still be living there, won't they? Because there's 3 actual melt-throughs, and there's been at least 2 nuclear explosions at Fukushima. We know 2 fuel pools blew up that they've been hiding. So this is quite serious, isn't it? I mean, that's a serious crack. And remember, if air gets in, bang, the whole thing goes up. So why are we living with this level of risk? And all on the pretext of providing jobs and keeping money rolling into the banks that are still, you know, the banks provided the loans to build these plants. Nobody suddenly arrived with the billions and billions it costs to build a plant like this. These are funded by loans from World Banks, okay? And those loans are still being paid off, because generally it's the interest on the loan that gets paid off. And again, I've repeatedly explained, this is a crime. It is a crime that these corporations are allowed to borrow huge sums from the banks, only pay off the interest off those loans, and then call everything else after that a profit, when actually it isn't a profit, is it? Because the original debt has not even been touched. and these plants are not insured. There is no insurance company on earth will insure nuclear power plants. So they're not insured. So if anything happens, it's on the public and the corporation itself to deal with this. Don't forget, a corporation that's already in debt to the tune of billions. So this is a very, very serious risk. And maybe instead of reopening this plant now, it needs to be shut down and money invested into alternative forms of clean energy. There are such a thing, there is a way of using nuclear power in a safe way, like cold fusion, for example. So why not invest in that and create jobs? Create the jobs that are going to be needed after you've decommissioned this plant. Because we're going to people need employment in this world, because the powers of this world have took away people's means and rights to live self-sustainably, to live in their own communities, producing their own clothing and shoes and food and tools and pots that we did for thousands of years. We survived for thousands of years without the corporation. But all of those means of sustaining ourselves have been taken away, so people are totally dependent on being provided with employment to buy from the shops that the corporations, that the same powers have provided us to live by now. So yeah, you can't grow your own food anymore, you can't make your own clothes, spin your own cloth anymore, you can't have your own local smithy to make your tools and your utensils. No, we control all the means of production, and we control the shops, and you're going to work and get money to buy, work is going to, work for external employers is going to take place of your own self-productions, okay? And then suddenly, oh, sorry, there's no jobs. Oh, so what are we going to do then? Well, we demanded social security, didn't we, for when the system failed. When the system failed because it was not providing people with employment, and having removed people's rights to live self-sustainably, okay, so therefore, come on, sorry, no, you have to provide us with a rock bottom, basic income, means of survival, when in the event that there's no jobs. Well, they're not even providing that anymore, are they? They're taking that away. They're making people work for their unemployment benefit. Well, how can you work for unemployment benefit? Because the whole point of unemployment benefit is that you're unemployed. Oh, well, let's just change the title of it, shall we? Let's call it job seekers allowance. Well, how can you be seeking a job when you're actually working for your job seekers allowance? But it doesn't matter. Instead, we'll all get busy signing petitions, won't we? No. No, there's certain things that petitions are useful for, and that is for preventing a disaster, for preventing something. We sign a petition, please, please be alert to this, stop this from happening. What is the point of signing a petition when it's already happened? When crime actually has already happened? No, then I want a petition to get people arrested and prosecuted. Because it'll be too late, won't it? It'll be too late to be having a petition to close this plant down, or to end nuclear power in Scotland once this has blown. That is too late, isn't it? A petition then, what is it for? No, arrest, isn't it? Arrest, because look, they've been warned, that is a serious crack. There's 700 of them. The average crack size is around 2 millimetres, there you go. There's 700. Well, there's over 350. I think there's 700. They're asking to be allowed to have the amount of cracks, look, operation limit of up to 700 cracks. The original limit was 350 cracks, but it's exceeded that. It's exceeded it. So now 700 cracks, they're saying. Exactly like they've done in Japan, isn't it? oh, well, how do you deal with 3 nuclear melt-throughs and still have the population living in that area? I know, let's just raise the limit of radiation that the average person, children or pregnant women, can be subject to. So instead of 1 millisievert a year, let's give them 20 millisieverts a year. Let that be the limit. You know, what was the limit for the average nuclear power plant worker to receive over a 5-year period? Okay, the limit for an average nuclear power plant worker to receive over a 5-year period was 20 millisieverts. Now, that's okay for every man, woman and child in the Fukushima district per year. Per year. You see, these people, do not trust them. Do not trust them. Do not trust them. This is an existential threat. And it's not just the people of Edinburgh, is it? Because it isn't like this nuclear stuff is just going to hang around Edinburgh, is it? It's going to spread all over Britain, which is a small, tiny island like Japan. And, you know, we cannot live with this level of ignorance anymore and this banal acceptance, the casual acceptance of, oh yeah, but you know, it's a clean form of energy. How can it be a clean form of energy when it is killing the life of our planet? It's killing humanity, children. You know, it is a well-known fact that incidents of childhood leukemia are directly related to nuclear power products being released willy-nilly anyway into our environment, and especially around these nuclear power stations. This needs to be closed down. This plant needs to be in permanent shutdown. It needs to be dismantled, and at the same time there needs to be investment to giving people the jobs that people need, that they have a right to. They have a right to, because, as I say, the means of production has been taken away from everybody. We no longer have the right to build our own little house and go out foraging and grow our own food and make our own clothes. All the things that humanity did for thousands upon thousands of years has all been taken over and controlled. Now, give us the jobs. Do not tell us that our livelihoods depend on putting not just our whole city at risk, but our whole nation and actually the planet itself. Do not tell us that, okay? Do not turn us into whores. You know, because that is basically what they are, isn't it? They are. Anything for the money. Anything for the money. Sell your planet. Sell your very planet. Sell the life of your planet. Put people at risk. You know? And then they tell us they want to use our bodies. They want to use our bodies to make these things function. And give us no choice whatsoever. Because how are you going to feed your family? How are you going to pay your mortgage? That is what they do. They turn people into slaves. They turn people into slaves. They've made us slaves to this madness, this absolute crazy madness. And for nothing more than gathering the material to make their nuclear weapons, because you can't make a nuclear bomb without a nuclear reactor. That's the bottom line of it, and that's the only reason why these things are in existence. The Queen has made billions, hundreds of billions, because she owns the uranium mines in the Commonwealth. She's made hundreds of billions of selling this stuff that otherwise would be useless. She wouldn't have had hundreds of billions if there weren't all these nuclear reactors around. It's, you know, as I say, they really are whores, and they think that, you know, they think they're making us into whores. You know, like, oh, look at them, they'll do anything as long as you give them a bit of money. But no, they've made us into slaves to their whores. it's, you know, what can I say? What can I say? If the people of Glasgow, if the people of Britain are prepared to live with this, you know, and already they want to build 10 more nuclear power stations in Britain. 10 more. Germany's banned nuclear power in their country. Okay? But Britain, like I say, sleepwalking into oblivion. Well, we'll just, you know, we won't bother listening to the top scientists that actually live in Edinburgh and have a vested interest, you know, live in Scotland. No, no, no. Instead, we'll listen to the corporations. We'll listen to the nuclear power industry. We will listen to the BBC, who was telling people in 2016 or 2017, was telling the people of Fukushima to go back and live in Fukushima and be actually exposed to the equivalent of 260 chest x-rays a year on a daily basis, you know, like 20 millisieverts. So, you know, over the course of a year, 260, because altogether the radiation monitored there in one place, Okawama I think it was, by the BBC's radiation expert, you know, the figure given off the Geiger counter amounted to 26 millisieverts a year. So that's 260 chest x-rays. You know, and I wrote to the NHS because I challenged the BBC on that. I made a complaint that took over a year, okay, from 2016 to 2017, an ongoing complaint that why the BBC was advising pregnant women and children to receive 200, that it was safe for them to receive 260 chest x-rays a year. I wrote to the NHS, I said, would you recommend that a pregnant woman receives 260 chest x-rays a year? No, no, of course we wouldn't. We wouldn't even recommend one. I said, well, perhaps you could explain that to the BBC because, you know, one of their experts has just been on BBC News telling the Japanese people, women, pregnant women, to go and live in an area where they will be subject to the equivalent of 260 chest x-rays a year. Oh, they all shut up. No, no, nobody, none of them wrote to the BBC because that's the country I'm living in, a country of somnambulists, people who are just asleep. Oh, that's got nothing to do with me. I just keep my head down, you know, with me blinkers on, doing my job, my thing, and then I go home and I watch my telly. I live my little life for as long as I can, and you know, I don't really believe in anything beyond myself because I've never really thought about what's inside me. I've never really connected to the universe that actually created me because I just daren't, because I'm too scared to think about all those other things because otherwise I might go mad. I go to church now and again, or I say a little prayer, or I give a little bit to charity. No, it isn't enough. We need to start getting connected to our universal being, our universal humanity, and we need to start taking responsibility. Now, all those NHS staff, and I wrote to top NHS people sharing my concerns, and I'll just get you the Facebook note up. Right, so this is just one of the Facebook notes that I did, sharing my experience of trying to, well, persuade the BBC to discuss this, and I made a very serious complaint because the BBC did actually lie to people, and I'll leave you a link to this note. I'm not going to read you the whole note, but basically they lied to people saying, oh, you know, it's only an extra millisievert a year, but as Professor Christopher Busby quite rightly stated, as I checked it out, that no, what their Geiger counter reading was actually 26 millisieverts a year. And I did challenge the BBC. It took over a year of being passed around to the BBC Trust and then back to complaints again and then back to the Trust, back to complaints, till eventually the only thing they did was remove the news article video from their website and just put there was an error in the reading given. They did not explain what that error was. They did not do another news report explaining exactly what 26 millisieverts a year of radiation amounts to. Nobody from the NHS that I'd written, especially the maternity departments, had written, supported my complaint to the BBC. And, you know, that really upset me. That, I think, you know, it is when you actually try to do something in this world, which I do. I directly confront authorities with evidence, not just about this, but about child protection. I confront them with the evidence. I request action. I demand action. And I get nowhere. I get just totally ignored, even with a wealth of evidence and facts. And I presented this to the NHS. And nobody, not one person from any of those postnatal and neonatal departments in the NHS stood by me, came forward and said, no, this lady is right. How dare you, BBC, advise women to go and live in an area where they will be subjected to 260 chest x-rays a year while they're pregnant, and their baby, their child, will be growing up in that. How many thousands of chest x-rays will that child have received by the age of 10? Not one of all those professionals could stand by me in that complaint. And so the BBC, who am I? I'm nobody, I'm not a professional, just brush me aside, brush me aside. And that is the problem. That is why so much horror is going down in this world, because all of you people who sail above me, who've lived above me all my life, who judge and stamp on people like me and ridicule us and, oh, we're all mad, you know, brush us aside like nothing. When we turn to you for help, genuine help, and your knowledge and education knows that we're right, and you do not stand by us. Instead, you stand by the BBC and all complicit together in your silence. And silence equals consent. And you people, you professional people of this world, you have consented to this. You have consented to it. Violence while you sail on your ego trips.